welcome to us unboxing stuff. Right, so we received the good old Warhammer Old Worldy box about a week ago, and I wanted to open it straight away, but during the last Lorebeards stream, I said, you know what, I'm going to open this online, and time, as it often does, kind of got in the way. Jobs kept on popping up. For example, at the moment, we're doing the last, let's say, parts of the planning for one of the games that we're releasing for the Rookery. And it's fair to say that that took up an awful lot of my time this week. And every single moment where I was like, I'll do it this evening, something else arrived. So here I am, just about an hour and a half before I start streaming over for the Rookery, discussing GMing and how to do GMing, taking live questions there. And I'm going to open it now, because if I don't open it now, I'm never opening it. Plus, I've got to get it opened by tomorrow. Now, if you don't know Lindsay over on this side, you should know Lindsay. She's part of our cast over on Lorehammer. She's also one of the authors of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay and a bunch of other roleplay stuff as well. She's also the most marvelous person in the world, and I'm not just saying that because she shares my last name.
So
she is
hang on,
the bestest.
Hang on. Did we receive the box? What actually happened to get the box into your hands?
Okay, you went to the Warhammer shop.
Thank you.
The actual ones I received from Lindsay. It was brilliant. There was also an extra bunch of boxes that were supposed to arrive, but as is often the case with a new game that's sold out everywhere, they kind of didn't. But as we'll note, one of them did, but we'll get to that in a little moment. So first things first is this big bad boy. For those of you who don't know my history with Warhammer, I have played every single edition of the game, but I started playing the game on 3rd edition. I have, at some point or another, collected every single army the game has to offer. Let me just check the newer ones to make sure I collected some of them. Never really did a big Ogre Kingdoms army, so I haven't done that, so maybe I should catch up on that one, eh? But I've done every single other army and owned every single book that Warhammer has got to offer. So it's fair to say that I know me Warhammer relatively well. After all, I wrote for the game for quite a bit over on the role-playing side. So I'm going to dive into this one and see exactly what it offers. I have purposely not spoilered myself, which is perhaps a bit foolish, given tomorrow I'm doing a big stream with the lore master of Sotek, where we're going to sit down and discuss all the lore changes that have been made with the old world in comparison to what it was before in Warhammer. And I haven't started that reading yet because, yay, I'm that guy. I will be reading it this evening. So are we ready to open this thing? If there's any of you out there who have yet to open it, you should do it right now. Go grab your copy so we can all do it together.
So Kicker is digging into my box right now also, so someone else is doing it. My first edition that I played was whatever edition was out in 1995.
1995, so you're looking at Warhammer 4th edition. That's often called Hero Hammer. It's also fair to say that that's the edition that I played probably most. That was the transition edition for me between not working for Games Workshop and then working for Games Workshop. I'm currently taking off the little sticky stickers that are holding everything in place in this. I didn't even know it had sticky stickers. So I was about to just pull that lid off and rip it to shreds.
Oh no. The first piece of Warhammer art I copied was a piece by Mark Gibbons. So
there you go. What was the first part I ever copied? Oh, that's a question. Okay, it doesn't really count as Warhammer art, but the first thing I ever religiously copied I'm just getting the second sticker off, by the way, just now as we go. It's proving to be stubborn. The first piece I copied a lot was the Thrud cartoon from the old White Dwarf magazines. And I used to love Carl's work back then, and there's the second sticker. I think I can now open it unless there's a third and a fourth. No, there's not.
Thorit Ironbrow is, "We'll wait for dwarves to arrive. No other armies matter. Slow and steady wins the race." That's the dwarven maxim.
All right, I'm over here now. I'm going to move my camera slightly just to make sure that this can be seen in the corner. I'm going to open up this bad boy here. There we go. Right, so while we're here, first thing I'm going to say is, do I like the cover work? Now, obviously, we're dealing with the good old Tomb King's version of the Old World box set here, and it's a pretty standard piece of art, exceedingly well rendered, of course. But what does it do? It shows 3 skeletons. It shows a big nasty and a pyramid in the background. It pretty much does exactly what it needs to do on the tin. It's about as inspiring as, I don't know, any other piece of marketing. I don't find it a particularly inspiring piece, but I don't think it really says Warhammer. It just says, here's some undead dudes. Yeah, you could put that in a box set so you know what's inside. It's not the most exciting cover. Having said that, though, it is absolutely gorgeous. So you get an awful lot of tick points from me for almost that alone. But it is particularly, I don't know, static. There's less war in the Warhammer in this than almost anything else. If you think of all the other various box set covers we've had for Warhammer, it tends to be really big battle sets where you see one force taking on another force and kicking ass and chewing gum. They're often deeply reminiscent of medieval and Renaissance pieces, classical pieces of artwork, and you can clearly see how influential those classical pieces have been on creating the Warhammer covers that came later. This, however, this is just marketing. That's what it feels like. And it's fine. I don't hate it.
Well, it feels like the cover of just like a Skelly regiment box.
Yeah, totally
just
does.
A little box set. Not like the big box of your game.
Yeah, totally. So it's fine. I'm going to dump that. Let's have a look in the inside of the box. They have actually treated the inside of the box. Often you will find that they don't bother. They just leave it as bare cardboard. But they've gone for, let's do it black. It's as cheap as you can possibly get. I know this for a fact because we're literally doing our box set right now. And we put a nice little print on the inside of our one. And we've just been looking at the samples and going, I like this bit, but I don't like this bit. It's been super fun.
Greyfate says it needed them clashing with the Bretonians, but then maybe that would have been confusing. People would have gone home with the wrong. And that should we talk about that? That you only get one army in the set, or are you gonna come to that?
I hate it. But we'll get onto that, I'm sure, as we take a look at the contents that are in here. We start off with, it's classic, the same old plastic range rulers that they've been using since I was pretty much first in Games Workshop. I remember the first, I think it was the 5th edition set, which was the first set that included them. They weren't inside the 4th edition set. I think it was 5th, and they haven't changed. So here we are, effectively at the 9th edition of Warhammer, and we're still using these things. Or maybe it was Necromunda that first did it, the blue ones. If anyone's out there and can confirm in their heads whether it was, but I'm pretty sure Necromunda did it first with their blue measuring sticks, and then Warhammer, I'm going to guess 5th, included it with its set as well. These are literally fine. If you are getting older and your eyesight is playing up a little bit, I strongly recommend that you dry brush those numbers so you can actually see them. Makes an enormous difference. Or for some people, because back when I used to work for Games Workshop, you'd meet a variety of different people, all of whom had different needs. And these range sticks, for all they work perfectly for kids and for people that were used to using them, for some people who had close-up issues with their eyesight, they found them a bit of a pain. I, however, am exceedingly fond of them.
The plebiscites, I think, are you talking about the red sticks? I felt like they stopped using them for a while.
They did. They stopped using them in the later sets, but these are the same ones from the original sets. That's what I was loosely... But yes, they did. Yeah. Unless I'm completely losing it. So this is basically the cheapest of the cheap options. Take something that has been produced with really cheap plastic that is, as we often called them, whippy sticks. I don't know if you can hear that in the mic. But yeah, whippy sticks. And by the way, they really hurt if you slap someone with them. I know. Let's move on. Let's get past the sticks. Nobody cares about those. I'm going to dive into the models. Right, so the first models I'm going to be looking at are the models that we all kind of know and love if you've been dealing with any Tomb Kings in the past. We're starting off with the Skelly horses. These are... Yeah, they're the old Skelly horses, ain't they? They've been going for like forever. They are... You know what? I'm going to say something about the old Skellies. I remember the old Undead Horde box set. It was a plastic box set, one of Games Workshop's earlier plastic box sets. Multi-piece set, really spindly, so prone to breaking sometimes. It had little helmets, different pieces you could put on. And it was really good. And we're talking, when was that first done? That must have been really early 90s when that was first released, perhaps even late 80s. Big, nice plastic cardboard, 30 Skellies inside there. I loved that set, and when they started releasing later models of plastic for the Undead, they never really went that much better, which is for me, hilarious, because the actual rendering on those models, when you look back at them, look at the real ones now, they're terrible. They're really smooth because they're the original plastics. If you compare them to plastics that came out later for, say, Hero Quest, which were supremely blocky, because they were using a slightly different molding process, slightly different plastic. But these ones here, these are, yeah, they're fine. I'm going to just skip past that. Because they are quite literally fine. Cheap. Hey, our first actual plastics that are new. Right, I obviously can't see anything here other than that's a whole hell of a lot of plastic. I won't be able to give any view on this until I see the fucker put together. Now, obviously, I've seen it online, and I've seen other people's attempts to try and make it look a little bit different as they kit bash it with various other models, because that's what we all do, don't we? We can't help but try and individualize these things. But as it currently stands, I will happily say, that looks like it's got skeletal bony stuff on it. Yeah! There's little else I can say, though. I do love that skelly wing, though. I don't know if you can see the spread of the wing, how well that comes across, but it's got a really nice look to it. I'm not really going to dwell on the miniatures too much, because the miniatures are either super new and they look super nice, but you can't really tell what they're going to be like until you actually get to grips with them. Oh, I love that wee cat. I don't know how well that comes across.
How does Andy feel? A cat, did you say? Is there a little cat?
Yeah, look at that one. Wait a minute, let me just find where the camera is. You can sort of see that fuzzy cat. It's well awesome.
How does Andy feel about Tomb Kings having a bone dragon?
Yeah, I'm totally cool with that. In fact, I think that sort of crap should, that and more should definitely be added. I don't think that in any way diminishes the Tomb Kings nor their tone. Dragons are a ubiquitous creature that are found across the, not just old world, but the Warhammer world as a whole. So I have no issues at all with an area the size of the Land of the Dead, which isn't just that little bit that everyone tends to think sitting on the side of Araby goes right over the World's Edge Mountains onto the other side as well, and is right beside a set of islands literally called Dragon Islands. In the old very first undead army list, you could have effectively undead dragons in there as well, and I see no reason that they should be constrained to outside of the area that is most commonly known for undead stuff. So yeah, literally no issues at all. I think it's kind of cool, and I really like that they're trying to theme it so it looks appropriate for the Tomb Kings as well. It's pretty cool. Oh, look at these ancient things.
You mentioned earlier, but for people who've just arrived, why did you go for Tomb Kings over Bretonnians?
Right, so I've collected Tomb Kings once in my life. I've collected Bretonnians about 3 times. Bretonnians as an army is not one of my biggest armies from the past because they're a pain in the arse to paint. Because there's so much color, so many different... If you're doing it properly, you want to put heraldic devices on it. You're either using transfers, or if you're like me and half blind, you're just going to strictly splash something on, and it never looks quite as good as you want. Now, I've painted more Bretonnians in my life than I care to mention, because the 5th edition of Warhammer included Bretonnians and Lizardmen in it. And the basic set needed to be painted and painted and painted and painted again for popping out on stores or some equivalent. And I must have painted in my time somewhere in the region of about, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000, I don't know how many knights, too many bloody knights and peasants. So the idea of painting more of those made my stomach go, no. And added on top of that, the idea that I hadn't collected many Tomb Kings and they're also a complete piece of piss to paint. Yeah, that went down pretty well with me. So just going to quickly pass by the templates. Yes, they're old. Yes, they're were these originally 40k templates? As I run back and go through my mind. Yeah, the plastic ones, I think so.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they were. My memory is old. They are old though as a set. I'm looking at these and I'm thinking, right, let's see, when did I first use these? So I'm looking at the end of the 90s. I reckon they were probably added to a set about 98, 99, somewhere there, and I think it was 40k first. So that's what I'm guessing for these. So off the top of my head, I could all look it up, but these are an old template being reused again, and it's fair to say that so far, all we've really got new out of this set is a couple of new sprues, and a box. That's it. All right, I've got to be careful there. I almost closed the entire site and vanished on you as my mouse got hit. Let's just get rid of that. Let's go through.
Grey Fate asks if either of us checked out Lords of the Lance yet. Would love for you to have a Warhammer Fantasy Book Club. That would be really good fun. We haven't checked out Lords of the Lance yet, but big shout out to it's Graham McNeil is
it's Graham, yeah. Yeah,
Big
it's
shout
rare.
out to Graham.
Okay, well, we love Graham. We know Graham. He's been on our Rookery show in the past. I've worked with him on a book before in the past, and he's just the best person in the
He's a
world.
great guy.
So he's great. So we're at the Skellies. I'm going to say nothing about these because I don't want to upset anyone that loves them. They're old. They're old. They're chunky. They are reminiscent of the Hero Quest models of old. They're just not great. This is as cheap as you can possibly get in terms of box production. And it's also worth saying, if I pull my box over now, you can just see it coming in there. I've gone down this far, and you can see why the box is such a chunky boy. It's such a chunky boy because it needs this lot of space to hold all the miniatures. And it's one thing that I do like about this, and that is we are getting ourselves a complete chunk of what we need to build ourselves a core army. I love that. We don't just get ourselves a couple of models, and they haven't taken, say, for example, what the 4th edition, oh, it's trying to reload my site again, the 4th edition of the book did, which was just give you some cardboard to do it. Yeah, we're not doing that. All right, let's move through. Again, I don't need to say anything about all these Skellies because they are the same old Skellies we've seen before in the past. There's nothing new. I'm just going to pile them in front of my monitor here, and they're increasingly growing higher and higher. You can't see the large pile of plastic as I'm building it up, but there's a fair chunk. It's a great place to begin, and as has been picked up there by Kicker, I agree with exactly what was just said there. It's just it's a really good starter. This feels like a lovely starter, and if these had all been new sculpts, this would have possibly been one of my favorite box sets in my life. They are not new sculpts. This box set, by comparison, is kind of cheap to produce in terms of the amount of sculpting that's required. None. Well, except for the couple of big pieces. The amount of extra tooling that's required to get all those miniatures. None. It's just all there. This is the lowest entry point they could almost have made to take a stab into the old world. It is, however, once it's all put together, I'm going to imagine this is going to look pretty fucking impressive regardless. I have issues because they're old models, but equally for those of you out there who've got those old models, this is brilliant because there's nothing superseding what you already have. So you don't have that. Often what comes with new editions is that need to buy all the new stuff that you've already got again. At best, in this instance, you're going to be rebasing, moving from one base size to another, and I can live with that. I mean, we rebased a good chunk of our Warhammer models to circular and round bases when Warhammer 8 came to an end, because I built my own Warhammer rules, because I'm me. And I did a set of Warhammer rules that worked off circular bases, but could also be chunked together into movement templates. And it was really funny seeing much later that the game for A Song of Ice and Fire that came from, that was Cool Mini or Not, as I recall, basically did exactly the same thing. Their rules were completely different to what I chose for my rules, but they were super fun to play with anyway. Right,
is the plastic waste recyclable? What does the box say? We'll check that when you get to the
bottom. That's a really good question. That's definitely a piece of card that you get between the plastic and the rest of it. That's a card. That's presumably to protect what's lying between the slightly spiky plastic and the books that lie beneath, so that your cover won't get all scored up. On that, let's see if it's required. Do we have? I'm just checking the sheen. There's not a single mark on this piece of card, so that's interesting. It could be though that this book, with its slightly, it feels like it's got a satin finish rather than what's this got? This has got a satin finish, and has survived without a single mark. Let's have a quick check at the rulebook.
So let me just answer. So Erin, the corner goblin, says ABS plastic is generally recyclable, but the bloke person says GW have recycling boxes in their stores for recycling the sprue frames now, which I noticed when I was in too. So you can take them into your local Warhammer store and recycle them there.
So our book, when we get into that, it is wrapped in plastic cellophane, which again makes me question why they've got this, other than it's a nice bit of card. It must be protecting something. There must be a reason it exists. It's in plastic, and the book is perfect. Not a single mark. The edges are clean, and the book also, by the looks of it, has a ribbon. Let me just double check if that's true, because I've not checked the book at all yet. This is my first encounter with it. Is that a ribbon at the bottom?
In the old days,
it is.
That paper.
Ribbon.
So that card in between, I agree with Massive Eclipse. Like, you might have expected to have an art print on it, so you could then like take the art print and stick it up on your wall or frame it.
Yeah, so, right. I was going to get to that because I was going to see if there's anything else protected underneath. And we have ourselves, let me just pull down, the holder for the book, which is worth noting. That's just a piece of card that the book sits in. It's a tray. Now, Games Workshop could have put anything on this. They have not covered the back. It's a classic internal tray, so I don't know if you can see it, but you can see that it's corrugated if I move closely. So you can see the... Yeah, I'll bring it up there. It's corrugated card. This is cheaper and standard card. We're, as I said at the moment, working on a box set ourselves for the Dark Deeds game that we're about to release. And its internal card tray is made with a slightly corrugated card. It's a standard for an innard. You can print on it. It looks lovely. Nobody generally pays that much attention to them. And I think that that's quite a nice little look. And again, we are duplicating.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're keen to make your set look super fancy and funky, and you're already color printing, anything could have been on this. Now, if it had been me, I would have been seeking to reinforce the narrative. I would have probably put a really cool quotation on here that really spoke to the undead. Cool. Perhaps something coming from Cetra, as he speaks to the core of what his character is and the core of what he's about to do as he assaults into the old world. You could have dropped that on there. It would have looked lovely. You could also have had yourself a couple of key pieces of art to either side. Now, either that suggests that they don't have much color art and they didn't want to duplicate what was sitting in front on top of the front cover. They didn't want to duplicate an old piece of art, or alternatively, whoever's making it didn't really think much about the innards, which is, for me, a crime! An absolute crime! I'm buying this. I want cool shit. If this had been a picture, it could have been up on my wall, being, you know, Warhammer Old Worldy. In fact, it goes quite well with the wall colour.
Yeah, could you fix that picture behind you? It's actually squint, and it's really annoying me.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Let me just do there. Oh, no, it doesn't want to fix. There we go.
Thank you. So while you're talking about a quotation from Cetra, the Laughing God asks, hello. Narratively speaking, what's one change or direction each of you would like to see from the Tomb Kings in the old world?
One change of direction, yeah. For me, it would be reinforcing that No, I'm going to keep it simple. Look back to our stream that we did with Cetra. You'll find it over on the Lore Master Sotek's channels. This week, Lorebeards will be over on the Lorehammer channels right here. But over on Lore Master Sotek's channels, we had a big chat about Cetra. And for me, Cetra has been massively underused for the character that he's become. Now, at the very beginning, Cetra was just another Tomb King. An important Tomb King, sure, but a Tomb King. And he was given a nice little character, a big flaily skull thing, the way he went. Over the course of the iterations of the game, Cetra became something much bigger. But his deeds didn't reflect that. Now, I'm pretty sure, given the squeaks that I've heard concerning what Cetra's deeds are going to be described at inside the new book, that they'll have been inflated a bit. But we are talking someone who has had thousands of years and is portrayed as arguably one of the most capable generals the world knows. And he has thousands of years of experience. We're not talking about, let's just pick some classic Empire general who's been kicking around for a good 20, 30 years at war. Yeah, he's pretty decent, right? Yeah, here comes Cetra. He's been at it for the last 3,000. I've got a feeling he might just know every single last thing you're likely to do. Unless it's some new technological innovation. And even that he will have experienced again and again and again in different ways. So what would I like to see? I would like to see Cetra properly examined and not just used as a bad guy of the week to be trooped out so that other guys from Britonia or elsewhere can hit him on the head. Yeah, screw that.
Yeah, I think I'll come on to mine later because I don't want to spoil a chat I know we're going to have later, but I will come back to that question.
Beyond that, I'd also like to say super thanks for the super chat, yes, Laughing God. Enormously appreciated. You rock. I'm also just going to say one more time, I actually find that vaguely unacceptable. It's pretty.
It's offensive.
It's pretty and it's nice. They've got, the background is just a marble texture of blue, and the symbol over it. But really, this is an absolutely wasted opportunity. They're going to spend the money on a full color print. This is the money for a full color print. The only other reason I can think that this exists is so that if they open up the box, they can slap it out and use alternative barcodes because it's got a barcode on it. Who knows what they're using it for? But they're still printed the same thing on the other side. This could have been different. I wouldn't mind knowing what the hell they were thinking there. And there might be a really good reason I'm not savvy to, but I don't think there is. As for this, I'm quite happy with this just being a basic marble texture with the Old World logo on it. That makes sense. It sits inside the box and is unlikely to ever be seen again. Indeed, this is likely to be chucked because it's a functional piece. This is something that didn't need to be chucked. And now we're just wasting cardboard. This could easily have been something cool you could put on your wall or possibly even frame. No reason why they couldn't do that. I'm a bit disappointed. Right, I'm going to put them down by the side and check what else we have down here. We have just see good old Tomb King there and flip
Is
that
that like
round.
a quick start rules thing?
I'm guessing it is. I'm just going to check. It says, I shall read from the top. Warhammer, the Old World. Tomb Kings of Khemri edition. I think this is just going to be a put everything together instruction booklet. Let's find out. It's a put everything together instruction booklet. Yay! So this is a large booklet for how to put your models together. Some of which are pretty complicated, particularly the newer ones, but that'll be no surprise. The older ones are super easy. Oh, and we have ourselves what appears to be an army list at the back. The army of Prince Tolathor? Looks like Tolathor the Radiant. Yeah, Prince Tolathor the Radiant. And we've got Neferkari the Hierophant in there. Prince Tolathor. Interestingly, for the fact it's his army, he's not the first character listed. The first character listed is Neferkari the Hierophant. 335 points instead of Prince Tolathor the Radiant, 127. Presumably in points marks order.
Is Neferkari a bloke?
Oh, they're all blokes. Because, you know... That should be your bloody response to what you'd like to see.
It was going to be my response. So I've got another response, but that response is mine.
Maybe not.
Tomb Kings.
No, they are.
The life priests being the firstborn sons of nobles. Like, just a bit yawn.
Yeah, totally agreed. It is all a little bit yawn. Particularly because the Tomb Kings, for all they're called Tomb Kings, have had several very strong female characters that have been presented over the course of time. Yet they're still freaking called Tomb Kings. It's almost like, well, you know, the Egyptians, they had, you know, kings, so we're going to copy that into our fantasy world and just duplicate. Oh, get out of it. Right, I'm going to see if there's anything else at the bottom of the box. There is a couple of things, but they're not going to be surprising. So underneath our little cardboard insert, which you can imagine would have been sitting at the bottom of the box looking like so. Let me turn that. Can I bring that all in shot? Like so. So underneath the two bits at the side, the two wings as it flaps by, and I carry in here, you had dice, you had that little booklet squeezed at the bottom, and of course you have all the bases. One of whom is freaking awesome. Look at the size of that base. That's a pretty big guy base. I imagine it's two. And there's a whole bunch of square 30 mil, however big they are, 25 mil, whatever. Bases that sit down at the bottom as well. So, I think I've gone through the entirety of the set, bar the dice.
Are they blue? Are the dice blue? Are the dice blue?
They are not.
The same colour as the box. Oh,
you can get yourself Tomb King dice separately if you wish to do so. I am very amused by the dice because these Warhammer are marked as, like, get this. So if you're buying yourself a copy of Warhammer, the Old World. So imagine right now, you're thinking, this is my moment. I have spent the last, let's say, 10 years of my life waiting for a new edition of Warhammer. The Old World has come. I have no interest in 40k. I have no interest at all in Age of Sigmar. Warhammer's what I want. And you see these old dice, and you're like, oh, that reminds me of being a kid. And then you see how they're labelled. I don't know if that's going to come through.
Oh my god, no.
What is that bullshit? Just take a moment to look at that. That is the dice pack that I receive in my freaking Old World box set. Now, does this upset me? A little bit. Does it amuse me? Probably more than it upsets me.
You've
but
made
seriously,
You've made your
Oh,
so Charlie the Turtle says, if I'm not mistaken, a female pharaoh would not have a different term.
Yeah.
True, but also it's not like they've made a ton of tomb kings that are women.
Yeah, totally. It's not just that as well. The word king is gendered. The word pharaoh arguably doesn't need to be, and you could have repurposed pharaoh for that purpose. But sadly, king is most certainly gendered. There's no way around it. So it just feels like you're excluding lots of people by doing so.
How many minis do we have?
I'm going to finish off making this point. Yeah. Okay. Don't let them interrupt my rant. So cut a long story short, since my rant has to be interrupted. Thanks for moving me along, Lindsay. When you're dealing with using gender terms when you don't need to, you always remove them. And you might sit out there and say, well, why? It doesn't really make any difference to me. But it's not just about you. And it's not just about you and perhaps your friends around you. I'll give a nice, wonderful example from my own life, so as anecdotal as you can get. I live in a house of women. Women now. It used to be a house of girls, but a house of women. I've got 2 daughters and I've got a wife. And a long time ago, I started a blog called Lorehammer, which, interestingly, we're still using as the name for the bits and pieces that we're doing. And I started that blog because my eldest daughter got interested in Warhammer and wanted to give it a go. So she went into the Warhammer shop, as it was then, Games Workshop, and she had to look around for something that inspired her, that made her want to collect it. And she was surrounded by boys who had loads of boys that they could paint and collect. She immediately, because of the gendered nature of what was being presented to her, started seeking something out that was perhaps a bit different and tried to find things that weren't so heavily gendered and weren't so heavily boy-centered. So she found herself what she could, as is often the case with these things, a few elves, but even they were mostly men. And she found it exceedingly difficult to get into in the same way that the boys could get into, because there was a certain lack of a reflection of her potential experiences. And when she was then surrounded by 2 or 3 other girls who all wanted to do the same, suddenly their options became exceedingly limited, because they all largely landed in the same army list. And one of the first things people often say against this are, hey, but they could play those other armies. We play those armies that have those other bits in. And you know what? You're right. But there's a reason that all of the various girls that she was surrounded by, and my other daughter too, collect the same armies. It's because it's the only ones that appeal to them. And using gender terms and presenting purely gendered models sadly reinforces exclusion of a significant portion of your customer base. Because my daughters loved painting, but they ended up not loving the game as a general whole because it just didn't appeal to them properly. And it wasn't because the game didn't appeal to them.
Yeah, we're not talking about like the rank and file skellies. We're talking about main characters. Like they're the Tomb Kings, but where are the female Tomb Kings? And where is just a little bit of
Eric,
differentiation.
No, you're not even having a dude moment. That's a very fair point, because the rank and file, they have to be, nowadays it's not an issue because you can create models in a variety of different poses on your sprues with ease. But particularly back then when we're looking at, say, Warhammer 4th up to 8th edition, it was expensive to produce alternatives. Even when the plastic sets started hitting in heavily during 8th edition, fully understood and accepted that, while simultaneously being very disappointed that they fell into classical gendered tropes that are based in the real world, not the fantasy world that they created. The Warhammer world is much less gendered than the real world. After all, it has very real gods that are female presenting, and they empower people, often female presenting others, but they are completely sidelined and forgotten by the war game because of where it focuses. And the language that they then use to support that is also gendered. This has nothing to do with me opening this bloody set. I'm going to continue opening this bloody set. Moving along, dice. I will just end by showing this one more time because it is an absolute freaking joke. Let me just turn that upside down. That is a joke. That is a joke. Seriously. Of all the things you could have done to try and cut costs, this is not the best one. Repurposing dice for a completely different game. It doesn't just look cheap. it makes me somewhat upset as a player of Warhammer, the game I have been desperately looking forward to seeing and receiving for the last 10 years, to then have 40k logos, well, not logos, but 40k text plastered on the innards. That is also kind of hilarious. So, there that, as we finally reach the last part of my particular unboxing. I'm also going to look at the bottom. And hey, it's so tech. It's so tech. It's so tech. How are you doing out there?
And
Delighted
Laughing
to see you.
God. Laughing God couldn't agree more. It said, where's Laughing God's comment gone? I don't know. I had it up a minute ago, saying that it was a missed opportunity. We've got so many questions, but we really need to unbox, because otherwise we're going to be late for our next stream.
We're not going to be late for our next stream. That's not going to happen. But I will say, this absolutely appalls me. Now, this might surprise you why it appalls me, but I'm going to tell you why. If your rules can't be summed up on one card, you've done failed. Now, you might try to be explanatory and give a really nice layout for it, but this is too much. This is not an easy reference card to be used at play. You tend to find when you play Warhammer, when you're starting off for the first time, there's only a few key rules that you need to refer to again and again, because you keep forgetting them. For example, how do I roll to hit? What's those numbers again? Oh, I've forgotten. Which table is it? Which one do I roll to wound? Or whatever equivalent you might be having issues with. That matters. When it comes to the process, all you really need to know process-wise is the overall top-tier stuff. As in, what's phase 1, phase 2, the bits that's sitting right in the very beginning, which is the strategy phase, movement phase, shooting phase, combat phase, and then a brief summary of each. You don't need to go into the complete process of the lot. Our summary card here, I'm going to argue, is too much. And I rarely say that because I like summary cards to be quite cleverly written. It's got art on it. Now, I understand that you're attempting to try and make it look pretty, but I would have preferred that this was carefully edited, the art was removed, and I had a single piece of card, because this, for a new player, is intimidating as fuck. And I know, because I have done... I've done intro games for, I would say, not just 10, 20, 100, 200. I have introed people through Warhammer thousands of times. I have taken kids through it, taken adults through it. I've taken people who were young, people who were old. And in all circumstances, the biggest barrier to entry was trying to feel that the game wasn't too complicated for them. This does not help. It does the opposite. It makes you feel like that the summary of the rules is too freaking big. If I have to read all of this and also all the rulebook, I'm going to be a bit intimidated. I don't like this. And yeah, I do like to bitch sometimes, as we may have noted from the stream so far. We finally arrive. Well, we don't quite finally arrive. I'm going to look at the box when I go at the book, and then we can call our bits to a halt. Let's take a look at the bottom of the box. They, again, have printed in the bottom a simple black color. It's cheap. It's effective. If they were being more expansive, they could easily have printed in the bottom of here and put, again, some sort of interesting quotation, something that really contextualized the game. Even if it had just been a skull sitting in the center of there, people would want to keep their boxes. They're going to keep them anyway. This, however, is matte. Matte finish is quite nice, but for miniatures, it's going to score up like all the hells, because miniatures will just scrape across. I don't even know if you can see that, but I've just done 2 scrapes, and you probably see them already. Is that showing on the camera? Okay,
yes,
matte finishes do not make for a good finish for your internal plastic set. So I would broadly say that the internal finish here is a cheap option. It's fine, but cheap. We have ourselves some painting suggestions sitting around the edge. It is, however, the same freaking image all the way round. Now, when I say there's a lack of imagination in terms of how they put this together, this is a perfect example of it. This is just the same miniatures we've got inside the booklets. We already have them and we don't need to see them again. Anything could have been here. Clearly, whoever put this together, whoever was conceptualizing what to put on the boxes, didn't know what to put on there. So like, let's just slap some more miniatures on. Complete waste of time. The bottom box, however, this is good. This is nice. I like this. I don't like the price. Holy crap balls. I don't like the price. Let's just bring that up there. Yeah. Because we bought it from the Warhammer store, because why wouldn't you? Oh, yeah, because you get a 20% discount if you bought it elsewhere. Shh. But take a look at that. It's gorgeous. It's lovely. In terms of the setup, it puts a highlight on the main models. It pops out each one of the models in turn. You get a nice army shot of the whole thing, very clearly marking that there's 93 models inside it. This is a lovely summary. It's only a single paragraph to get you into it. Another single paragraph explaining what the Tomb Kings are, and then just a quick what's inside the box. This is good. This is actually not just good. This is Games Workshop
Sorry.
at their... Oh, that's we have an alarm set because we have a Rookery stream in 1 hour's time exactly, and it's going to be super fun. If you roleplay out there, it's going to be me taking questions about how to GM, and if you've been watching any of the Lorehammer streams, you'll know that my GMing is perhaps a bit unique. So feel free to pop over to the Rookery stream right after this one's finished, because we're going to be there at 7 o'clock over on Rookery Publications YouTube channel and Twitch. Ha! That was a good way to get an advert in, Lindsay. I approve. So looking at this, this is a super professional outcome.
Just to address this, needing female Necron skeletons anything is cringe. Everything doesn't need to self-insert into everything. Like, if you think that women are self-inserting by putting themselves into games, then by default you think everyone already in games are men, and that's why women would need to self-insert. Like, they are 50% of the population.
But I will also add that there is no need on your basic troops to have any of these things. They're just not an important component of it because they are genderless, and that is cool. The second they start to gender them, that's when you need to take a look at what you're presenting as a producer.
Yeah, exactly.
And many of the characters as they're presented are gendered, and that being the case, then they need to take a look at it and say, well, how can we make sure that not only is this something that is in any way reflective of the society we're attempting to describe, which is an exceedingly important component of the background writing, but also how can we tout this out to the folks that are out there? It's nothing to do with being cringe. It's to do with maximizing your profits and to get as many people out there, because they are ultimately a business.
Lindsay must quite like Andy to pay that price. I do quite like him. I can confirm.
Yeah, I'm all right sometimes.
I bought him his Valentine's card today, well ahead of schedule.
Holy crap, it's almost... That's like, we've got 2 weeks to go. You're putting pressure on already. So, that's the bottom of the box. I don't like it. In fact, I would argue that the bottom of the box and the blurb is beautiful, technically put together wonderfully. The front cover is dull and uninspired. The additional images that they put throughout the course of that box are also dull and uninspired. They could have just sat down for a day with a writer with any real imagination and just gone, what could we do to make this as cool as fuck? Because this is going to be the opportunity for all of us to finally show the old world at its strength. They could have had, like, I don't know, a whole bunch of Tomb King ruins, even if it just been the blue texture, black and white art sitting along the edge, just running along the edge of the box. They could have had all sorts of cool shit, quotations or funky stuff or things that contextualized this new force that you've had. The characters that they're dropping in as the primary characters there, who are they? We don't know. Let's add a little bit of extra. The box could have been nothing more than a thing of beauty, but instead it's just incredibly proficient. Right, so I'm done with that. The last part from my side is this, the Old World book. Now, I'm obviously not reading it just now. I am going to take a very quick skim as the final part of my side of the unboxing. I will say, I think the cover is lovely. It's nice and clean. They've got, I think the cover is lovely. Fantasy battles in the world of legend. Yeah.
What color is the blue? Like, what Citadel paint color is it?
I don't know. I haven't been using Citadel paints for so long, I can't even remember.
Well,
the old ones, if you're looking back to the old paints, I could probably add that some a Swooping Hawk turquoise. You're pretty much exactly on that.
Swooping Hawk turquoise, but I don't know if that's a thing anymore.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I haven't kept up with the Citadel range. I'm old. So I'm going to open up map. I'm not going to discuss the map just now. I do love having a map on the inside cover. I will say that they have made some interesting choices. If you know me, you'll know that I have mapped a lot for Games Workshop down through the years, and they have made a lot of very interesting choices, which have invalidated certain background choices. They have overwritten some others, which is super fun. But loosely speaking, I love this. It's really nice. It's cool. On the inside, our first page immediately goes into the Warhammer Old World with a quick intro. Prepare yourself to enter a world of battle and death. Right, so this is lovely. We've got ourselves a big printed blue page there that could have been something else. But even the cleanliness of that I actually quite like. The text is, given that many of their core audience are going to be sitting in their 30s to 50s, arguably a little bit small. We're going to get some complaints from some people who've got eyesight issues. I know this because we used to get complaints in Games Workshop all the time. But as you move into the core text, the black on clear white, well, it's not white, it's parchment color. It's easy to read. The size is fine. The black and white is also easy on the eyes. It's very easy for color text, colored backgrounds to intrude upon text and make it difficult to read. But this is more than clean enough. The images, as we note, it's classic Battlefield stuff at the beginning. In fact, as I go through this, this is almost classic Games Workshop presentation. Oh, no! No, it's not. We don't go into the rules. It's almost like a roleplay book. We go into the background. Oh, I'm quite looking forward to reading this. Straight into the background, black and white art, old black and white art. Back into the Unending War, a timeline following after that. A long timeline. I'm not sure I'd have presented it that way. War and Conquest, Elves and Dwarves, Rise of Men, Rise of Nagash. It's going through all the historical elements of... Interestingly, it's not going through just the old world. It's going through many events here that are beyond the old world, which is interesting given the stress and focus of the game and the fact that they have categorically said they're never going to release these other armies. And as I make my way through here, I'm seeing... There's the Green Menace, Mork and Gork, the Tomb Kings of Khemri, very important. Yeah, lots of reuse of art. Oh, lovely Adrian Smith pieces there. But we... Oh, there we go. A whole section on the Wolves of the Sea. Norse. Interesting.
Nice.
Okay, that's good. Land of Ice and Snow, section of Kislev. Ruled by Dragons, second of Grand Cathay. And we don't get to the rules on until we hit page 91. Right, this is a rule book. This is going to be referenced again and again and again. That is stupid. It's actually stupid. I mean, I love it. I mean, I love the fact that the lore's getting so much. I'm going to be reading this like a child over the course of this evening. But that's not clever for a rule book. Rule book, you want the rules front and center. You want to be able to access all the information that you're going to be using again and again and again. And this means that you're always going to have to flick through the book to try and find the start. Every single time. This is nothing more than the first step towards damaging the book and it beginning to fall apart. If all the rules are sitting right at this beginning, super easy to find and reference. And we're going to be referencing these a lot as we play. Maybe that's why they went for a bigger reference card, so that you don't look at the rulebook.
Possibly.
I mean, maybe. But I would just like to say, whilst obviously the information I'm sure will be fine, I'm going to be reading it later, the flow of it, I mean, it's very clean. You can see that it's nice and clear. It's classic Games Workshop black and white art. It's all old. There's pretty much nothing in here. Oh, no, that's a new one. There's very little in here that's new. Reusing assets with a new set of rules, which I'm really looking forward to working our way through. There's the shooting phase.
Is there any Beastmen art? Grey Fate wants to see some Beastmen art.
Yeah, there was earlier on in the background section when they went through the beast. And there'll be, all the way through the rules, there's snapshots of black and white art for each one of the different factions inside, across the Warhammer world. I'm rather amused at how much space they're giving to factions, though, that won't be there. Good chunk of discussion there about Lizardmen, for example, which will not be in the old world if you listen to Games Workshop. I'm looking for a Beastman. Is that Beastman there? Yeah, that is, but it's not a good one. Have we got a better one? Well, that's the Lost and the Damned. There's the Beast of the Forest. There's not a lot there in them. In fact, there's very little. It's only a double page spread there of faded art at that. There's lots of pieces that include Beastmen as you make your way through, though. Right, so I'm just checking as we go through rules, more rules, how chariots work. I'm just flicking through this now because I imagine we're going to go to the end where we're going to get our painted section. Games Workshop has always worked on the black and white to colour sections, and even when they moved to full colour books, which these are, so they could easily have dumped the concept of black and white going into colour. They didn't. They stuck with it. So we're dealing with a full colour rulebook. So this is a full colour print, which costs the same as any other print, often using, in some of their examples, actual colours for the different bases. So this is no cheaper, and then they still have their own colour sections later to focus on the miniatures. I find that fascinating that they have basically haven't just followed the template. They've almost followed the template without realizing why the template was first put in place. And that was, they had a color section for the expensive section, and all the rest was black and white, because that's how the books were built. Take a look at all the old army lists from, say, 4th edition and how they were constructed. This is vaguely amusing, just to see that. It then goes on to battlefields, how you put your battlefields together, how your allies work, a bunch of scenario bits and pieces, Drakvald Forest Incident, meaty engagements, or the Battle of Gizero Gap, a mountain pass battle, a command and control battle, the Lonely Tower, or just campaign battles in general, how to handle your different games. There's a good bit of material here, good bit of reuse of old double-page spreads.
Apparently, the gnome homeland is on the map. Is this true? Is this true?
It is. It's rather amusing because I'm not entirely sure they know that. We'll find out. We'll find out whether it's actually mentioned for that. But yes, what I included for the good old gnomes as I reintroduced them back in fantasy roleplay, has been repeated.
Is it Glimdwaro? Is it called Glimdwaro?
Yeah, it is, but it's the Mirror Moors in particular.
Mirror Moors, yeah.
Yeah, the Mirror Moors are included. They're slightly different place, but they're there. Elementalism, rather amusingly, marked here. I'm gonna have to go through the magic and see how they've brought it into place. High magic. What are they doing with elementalism? Are they just... I'll read that later. I'm interested to see what that's going to be. The magic in particular fascinates me because I know what I feel the magic should be before the colleges of magic are put in place. I'm very keen to read what they've turned that into. Necromancy, illusionism, interesting. And then just a summary of spells. A quick reference at the back, which is fascinating. That your quick reference is sitting right at the back of the rulebook. I can't decide whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, it can't be at the front, can it? Basically, that's a... And then we've got ourselves an index at the back. Do we have a list of contents at the front at all? Introduction.
While you're doing that,
yeah,
because we've got to get on for our next stream, shall I do mine?
All right, so we're not just going to be unboxing the base box set, as you may have noted I have been doing. We unexpectedly received one of our very late orders, so I'm not even sure which one this is, and I'm not even sure where it's come from. Is this one directly from Games Workshop? Is this Lindsay? Yeah?
Yep.
Yeah, more Warhammer, more the time. Okay, so this one's directly from Games Workshop, so I do know what this is. This is a book that on the cover, I can already feel a rant coming on. Alrighty. Right. What have you got inside?
Well, I've got 2 books inside this box.
Ooh, that's what you should have. We don't have there's 2 books that have yet to arrive yet. The scummy, late delivering, horrible people out there.
I like the title, Ravening Hordes.
It's a good call out to 3rd edition onwards.
I don't like the subtitle, Army Lists for the Forces of Evil, that includes orcs and goblins, not evil, just a force of nature. Do they even have a morality system? Nobody knows. Warriors of Chaos, okay, fine, they're chaos, but they're chaos. It's destruction, right? And Beastmen Brayhards. Now, I stand by this, but Beastmen have a society. Can we really call them evil? And finally, the Tomb Kings of Khemri.
It is almost one of the most un-Warhammer things I have ever seen. Calling things good and evil. It still says good in the main one too, doesn't it?
Forces of Fantasy. So Forces of Fantasy and the Ravening Hordes, I think, are a callback. But Army Lists for the Forces of Good makes me feel even more sick than the Forces of Evil. Like, if you live in Bretonia and your children are abducted by wood elves, can you really call them good? If you live in Wood Elf Land, I do actually know what it's called, but I decided to call it that. And some Bretonians come down and cut down trees that literally have spirits in them. Do you think Bretonians are good? Ridiculous. Good and evil, it's for children. Yep. It should have been order and destruction or something. Anyway, this is what I've got. I really like the picture on the cover of Forces of Fantasy. I'm never going to call it good. And this is pretty cool too. It's got the bone dragon on it.
Oh yeah, that's pretty awesome. In fact, it looks almost better than the core one. I'll need to look at that closely. I'm
going to run through right now and give them to you.
No, it's all right. You don't need to. You can. Okay. And you want to have a little look through?
Good. I'm going to have a flick through. So I've seen some of the Bretonian character names, and I'm a bit of a language nerd, and
You won't
I
get them
was
in those books, sadly. But I do
little
think
bit
it's worth calling out.
disappointed.
Yeah, that book doesn't have the Bretonian or the Tomb King stuff, because that's the two books that haven't arrived.
No,
This
it
is the
does.
more...
It's got the Kingdom of Bretonia in it. It's just not the separate.
It's not the extra bits.
It's not the extra like arcane journal or whatever their book that isn't an army list is. So these are the army lists. So it does have the Bretonian army list in it, but then there's like an arcane journal, which I don't really understand what the difference between an arcane journal and an army list is.
It's lovely not purposely avoiding all of the spoilers that have been online, so that I have no idea what I'm getting my hands on. I particularly enjoyed this part because it was quite fun just going through the book alone, because I didn't know the order it was in, or what it presented, or how much focus it has on things that have nothing to do with the old world, which is interesting as a choice. So what are you finding over there in your book?
I like this art. This is like from the this is the style that companion book. Blood on the Reich, is it? The companion book, that's the style of art that's in that, which I really, really love. I'll just grab it.
It's also a bit of a call out to Sixth. Was it Sixth? They got very cartoony. It's
really
in
similar to the Blood on the Reich, A Journey Through the Old World, which is quite which the blurb on the back of that is written like in character about the guy that wrote it, Tobias Helmgart. So they've kind of called back to that. Oh,
while you're having a look, I'm going to pull up the super chat. Super thanks for that, Sean. How many minis do you have, Lorehammer? Right, I've got a lot of them in storage just now. I have gone through spates of collecting and selling through the course of my life. As I say, I have owned every single army, and some armies I've owned like 4 or 5 times at different points. At the moment, I don't know, in storage, I must have somewhere in the region of about 10,000 or so miniatures in various places. That's a guess. I know I've still got my original undead army in metal that I never got rid of back from when I was... Oh, no, there's more comments to go yet before you bring up those.
Sorry.
Let me finish over here first.
Yeah.
About 10,000... no, moving back, got my old original undead army that I bought when I worked for Workshop the very first time around. What have you got there, Lindsay?
It's just a cool... It looks like it would be on like the wall of something.
A bit more time.
Yeah, depicting a whole fight. I really like that.
Yeah, like those. So I've still got those, and that's about 300 metal undead from about back in the day. I have a lot of miniatures. Back when I was role-playing for a while, I used miniatures for my role-playing as well, and I bought somewhere in the region of around about 500 models for that alone, most of which I still own. So yeah, I've got a lot. I'm not the only one here that does. Both my kids have got miniatures. Lindsay has a Dark Elf army, for example. We have, quite a lot of models here.
Look. I love that guy.
That's good.
There's like in the little art at the bottom, there's like I don't know if you can see it. Is that the right page? But like there's the tiniest little dragon. It looks like they're playing Carcassonne and the dragon's coming around to eat all the parts.
Love it. Loving God. Hi, thanks very much for the super chat there. The fact that there is no Warhammer equivalent to Pharaoh, chips. It does seem a missed opportunity, I agree. Particularly because those are the type of characters that are normally grasped upon by Games Workshop as they attempt to form their version of inclusion as they build their armies. Take, for example, the equivalent Repans de Lyonesse, for example, as our Joan of Arc character. They are generally always ported over in some fashion or another. And in many respects, because they look a bit daft sometimes. Sometimes, not always, because they just look like that they can't think of something original and new, and they always port something over. And they are the only representation they have, which is reflection of real-world characters, when on the other side, there's this lovely mixture of real-world, fantasy, totally crazy bonkers, a nice melange of different character types. But I agree, it is a bit odd that there's not just one, but multiple different versions of different types of characters. Given the very nature of the Tomb Kingdoms as they were set up, it seems a bit odd. But it is what it is.
I feel like this is like Ludwig Schwarzhelm with his like forked beard. If that's who it's meant to be.
Was that done originally for the novel? I can't remember. It's been a wee while since I've seen that picky. So thanks very much for those super chats. You brought up a chat, Lindsay, that you wanted to.
Well, one Suejan asked earlier, what did we all end up playing? Me and the girls, and we ended up playing mostly elves. Josie played
Elves.
wood elves. I played dark elves. I've also had a high
Laurie
elf
was high
army.
elves.
Laurie was high elves, but
Yeah.
I've had a Skaven army before. I love painting Skaven.
Skaven are great.
And like, I don't really care about the gender balance in Skaven. It's not a big deal for me. It was more in other armies. So, Lindsay, question: how would you tackle Beastman naming conventions? I can't think of a name for my heroes that don't suck. Well, my names really suck because my Beastmen team were called the Slaneshi Saints, and all of the blockers. No, it wasn't the blockers. It was the linemen were called things like, I don't know, Smut Longhorn or Rut Silvermane.
It was Rut Silvermane. Yeah.
Rut
Longhorn.
Silvermane. No, Smut Longhorn was one too.
No, you're right.
So basically,
you're right.
I would pick a last name that was a description of their physicality, because physicality is so important to Beastmen. And the first name would be something that was tied in with the god that their Beastman tribe was mostly aligned to. So they were the Slaneshi Saints. So Rut and Brute and various things like that.
It was good. Fun team. I enjoyed the Slaneshi Saints. I enjoyed stomping them into the ground with the Middenheim Wolves. Oh yeah. That was perhaps
here's another
unnecessary.
question for me. Lindsay, with all of you doing different elven factions, do you describe any family arguments as a sundering? When I sing the Pet Shop Boys song Go West, it's an advert for Malekith about how great life is in Nagaroth. That's how much I'm into.
Go West! Life is peaceful there. I mean, are you sure?
Yes. Smut Longhorn was pretty cool. He did have the particular model had really long straight horns. He was so cool.
Yeah, Lindsay's entire team was conversions, so they used the old metal beastmen from the Warhammer, I think it was 5th edition range, and they were all converted for Blood Bowl, which was
you
super
made
fun.
me a beautiful. You converted for me a beautiful. What was she called? Oh, I think she was the saint.
No, the saint was the heavy blocker that was painted.
Yeah, the saint was the blocker. Maybe she was like Silk or Satin or some other S word, because we were young. Like, but she was really cool. But I think you converted her from like maybe a 40k Eldar model and stripped off all the weapons, and it was a really dynamic pose. So she was like dancing.
Yeah, it was an old Dark Elder model, mixed up with a couple of others. Anyway, that's by the by. Anything else to note from those funky books that you?
Well, I've only looked through one because I got so excited so I'm looking through the Ravening Hordes now. The Ravening Hordes? Yeah, that's what they're called. I just went to look for the big art.
Makes me want to get the original Ravening Hordes, because I think I've got it over there.
It's
in the other room.
I was looking at it the other day.
Good book. I used that a lot back when I was a kid.
Here's the Warriors of Chaos, like title page, I guess. Pretty cool.
So anything to note from those? Is it just basically a gigantic mix of army list stuff?
Yeah, so the arcane journals will have like the named characters and stuff. So these are just all the Chaos Knights, Chaos Marauders, Forsakens. They don't have any named characters in them. And they actually don't have a huge amount of lore. They've got like where the Ravening Hordes live, desolate realms like the Darklands, the Badlands, the Land of the Dead, the Chaos Waste. And then they've got like maybe a page and a bit on what Orc and Goblin tribes are, and then it's straight into the army list.
Couldn't agree with you more,
yeah,
Mr.
exactly,
Vorn.
Right. Outrageous.
It's just outrageous. Yeah, absolutely inappropriate and incorrect. So I think given the hour. Oh, I do love that. There's the Beastman that you were looking for earlier.
It was pretty metal.
It's pretty fucking metal. Right, so I'm going to call it, generally speaking, a night here with a couple of summation points. All right, here we go. What do I think, having not read anything, having not played the game, having barely looked at the miniatures? I think this box set is cheap as hell. I think it's also going to do exactly what it needs to do. So I don't in any way blame them for doing this, particularly because it's such a gamble to many people over at Games Workshop. Are the lack of new models disappointing? Yes. Is the lack of imagination in how the box was put together disappointing? For me, someone who also produces games on the side, okay, not on the side, I produce games. I find it disappointing. I think that the box set could have been so much more than it was. It's super cool composition on the back for the layout, some lovely summation of information for the back of the box, but the summary card taking 4 pages, no, in fact, it's double, yeah, that's 4 pages, is for me a crime. It's going to put some people off, particularly if it's going to be used as an introduction for other people. It's just an awful lot to take on as the summary of everything that you need to know. The fact that the rules are the second part of the rule book and not the first, I think is change for the worse, because it's going to make it harder to reference the rules immediately. It's going to make the book a little bit more annoying to use at play, because you don't just open it at the first page and immediately dive into the bit you need. You open it at the first page and have to flick through to get to the bit you need, which means that some people are going to start annotating the rule books, putting stickers in or little post-it notes so they can get to the bits that they frequently need to get access to. I do agree that slapping all of the magic rules at the back and similar is a really good idea, but the summaries, I mean, the main core rulebook sitting in the middle, no, that was an unwise choice. Overall, the art looks like it's absolutely exceptional, as you would expect, but the vast majority of it is old. It's reuses. The general set as a whole is... Now, I hesitate to use the word. It's cheap from Games Workshop's perspective to produce. It's still super expensive. It's a big set. And it comes out at 175 quid for those of us who are not buying at a discount. And that's an awful lot of money, but it is nevertheless still a pretty cheap one that doesn't do anything particularly daring. It's just a new version of the rules using lots of old miniatures and a couple of new ones, and the big hope that it'll do well. Thankfully, it looks like it is. But I will say that it has one other enormous problem that I don't think I will get over, and that's that it is not a starter set for Warhammer. This just isn't. There is no way that you can go buy yourself a box set and get everything you need to play Warhammer with your friends. And every single version of Warhammer since 4th edition has done that. This is the first edition of a Warhammer game where I can't go and buy a box and play with my friends. I'm going to need at least 2 boxes. In fact, there are people out there who are going to immediately think, oh, well, we'll just buy 1 box each, won't we? Holy shit, that's an awful money. That's like 350 quid, which is a remarkably high entry point, but it will give you everything you need to begin. I think it's not that it's a mistake per se, but it's really close to it. Including the rule book inside the core regimental set means that if you bought the rule book, you're not going to want to buy the core regimental set. That's a bit weird. So you're not going to want to buy the big army box. It's just, there's some weird choices going on there that I generally kind of don't like. Because if I'm a customer looking to grab the bits that I need, it's super easy to get it wrong. And it's super easy to end up with a selection of plastic that can't be used with my friends, meaning that I am then left going, holy shit, I need to spend another 150, 160 quid just to get going. Or I need to get my friends, oh no, where beforehand you're 40, and then later editions 60, 80, 90, however much the sets eventually become out to. They basically give you everything you need to get going. You can sit down with your friends with a single box set and play. That's not the case here. This is very much targeted at people who are older, who have money, and who aren't just going to pick this up on a whim. This is not the video game audience anymore. We've moved beyond the video game audience. We've moved beyond targeting kids with our basic set here. This is a lot of money that will cause a lot of parents to balk, where the single book by itself kind of isn't, but you can't play with it. So you're ultimately telling your customers that either A, they buy a book and read some stuff and never really get round to doing the thing, or alternatively, they spend a ton of money but still can't play until their friends have done the same. And it's, for me, not the best outcome. I understand some of the choices behind it, but I nevertheless, if I was there inside that room helping make those decisions, I think I would have argued hard for a different way of producing the first initial set of releases, and also argued hard for how the boxes were presented in an attempt to try and make Warhammer as cool as it freaking could be. And that doesn't just mean some pictures of models and a cool piece of art. That means sinking people into the background. That makes making people excited about what's going to come next. That's about hinting at the cool secrets that are going to come in whatever wars that you're going to present as the old world falls in one fashion or another and heads towards its next incursion of chaos with Azavar Kul coming from the north. All of that is stuff that they could have been hinting towards that isn't in there. And I am generally, not disappointed is too strong, but I'm disappointed. It just feels like the people who are engaged with it haven't really wanted to make it as cool as possible. It feels more like they wanted to get it out and see if it worked. And it, as far as I was concerned, was going to work. So that's where I sit. However, having said that, though, it's freaking gorgeous, innit? Really looking forward to diving in with that. We are streaming, Lindsay and I, again in just half an hour's time over on Rookery Publications channel.
So there's no time. There's no time for the nuance of what kind of game it is. But to be fair, they have been calling it a specialist game, and there's no time for me to talk about the names that I don't like. But one that I really don't like that I do have to call out is, I don't know if this is existing in the lore. I don't think it is, but the Kislevite royal family are the Romanovs, and I just can't even with that. So come back for another stream where we'll talk about Warhammer naming practices.
Yeah, in fact, maybe we should bring Lindsay into Lorebeards tomorrow, because that is going to be something I discuss as well, because I'm rather upset with that one. In fact, I love much of what they're doing with the background, but there's a couple of names that just make me go, did anyone think about this? So yes, just a bit of a dear, that was not well thought through, was it? That's not quite cool. So yes, and half an hour we'll be over on Rookery Publications. We'll be discussing GMing. That's games mastering in role-playing games. If you watch my Lorehammer streams, you will know that I GM like mad and have an awful lot of fun doing it. But there's more than one types of GMing. You also have GMing at conventions, or you have GMing for friends, just sitting around a table rather than doing an actual play. There's lots of different types of GMing. We're going to be discussing those, but I don't know what we'll be discussing because those streams are all entirely question-driven. So if you've got any questions that you would like me to address, tune in live, pop them up, and we will discuss them all out. Looking forward to it. So is that everything that we're going to do done, Lindsay?
It is. Sorry, I'm just like, because I'm using my iPad, I keep on like showing you all my hands, which is really weird when I'm hiding and showing comments. So yeah, we'll see you in 29 minutes now for me to give Andy a grilling on his GM technique.
Grilling time ahoy! See you all very soon. And if you're watching this stream much later, that video will still be up over in the Rookery Publications on YouTube. You'll be able to find it. It'll be number 107 in terms of our episodes. Wow. We'll see you over there. Talk to you again very soon. Bye-bye.